Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Whether you're joining us as a parent of a current student or you're one of our 65,000 alumni celebrating homecoming, I hope that you're able to participate in a variety of the events scheduled on this virtual Falcon weekend. So my name is Paul Condrin, and I'm the chair of the Bentley's Board of Trustees and acting president. And no matter your affiliation with Bentley, I'm certain that we have a few things in common. I'm a proud Bentley graduate, class of '83, and the parent of a recent alumna and a current student. I've also been a trustee of the university for more than 7 years. Bentley has been part of my life and now my family's life for nearly 40 years. And while Bentley has certainly evolved since my days as a commuter student, I know that the lessons and life-changing values our students take away from these years remain the same. In addition to my role as the chair of the Board of Trustees, since June, I've been serving as Bentley's acting president, meeting and working daily with the university's leadership team to guide Bentley through these challenging times. These past few months have only reaffirmed what I've long known to be true, that Bentley is a community like no other. I've been particularly proud to watch how our students have responded to the many changes that face this trimester. As I said before, this community is a special one, and it's been an honor to work so closely with our talented students, faculty, and staff these past few months. I hope that you're able to see for yourself how special this community is during our virtual Falcon weekend. Andrew and I are happy that you joined us today. I'll now let Andrew introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Shepardson. I am the Vice President for Student Affairs and the Dean of Students. So for the families that are here, this is the face behind the emails that you've been getting for returning students since March and for new students since August about all the things that have been going on campus. And I've enjoyed our conversations and our opportunity to connect about your students and thrilled that you're joining us today. If you're an alum since graduating after 1994, our paths have crossed in some way since I've been at Bentley since starting in the academic year 93-94. So not as long of an affiliation as Paul, but 27 years with Bentley. So it feels like home to me and a really incredible community to be a part of. And if you're an alum before 94, I love connecting with you and I love hearing the stories about Bentley and how much it has changed, but also how much the community has really stayed the same through all those years. And just to share with you my responsibilities at the university, just as if you have questions about particular areas, the areas that I oversee, it's the outside the academics, it's the student experience that occurs at Bentley in a few distinct areas. I oversee the residential center, which is for those of you that have students living on campus, the housing, also our care system, which helps work with students who may need some help as they go through their 4 years here. I oversee the student equity and inclusion area, which includes our Center for International Students and Scholars, our multicultural center, and our gender and sexuality student programs. Also student engagement, which includes orientation, all of our new student programs, and student programs and engagement, which is all of our over 100 student organizations. Also our health, wellness, and counseling, which includes our counseling center, along with our wellness center. And this year, for the first time in my career, and hopefully the last time, our screening center, which tests faculty, staff, and students who are on campus for COVID-19. I also oversee our university police department, as well as the varsity athletics, recreation, and intramural programs at the university. So I'm thrilled you're here. I hope you have some questions for us and we can answer them or give you some comments on what life is like on campus right now. It's beautiful. And I was saying to Emily and Paul earlier, this would have been a spectacular weekend for all of you to join us. And we're all thinking about doing this next year when we can all do this in person, but thrilled to be able to virtually connect with everyone.
Thank you both. So with so much going on at Bentley in just these past few weeks, I think there are two subjects which are most top of mind in this current climate. They are one, the search for Bentley's 9th president, and two, the return to campus amidst the COVID-19 procedures. So perhaps Paul, you could speak to the progress on the presidential search, and Andrew, you could follow up with giving an update on how the return to campus has been going and our COVID-19 precautions.
Sure, Emily, I'd be happy to. I'm not surprised that topic is top of mind. There is really no greater responsibility of the Board of Trustees than the selection of a president who can best advance the university's mission and strategic plan. The search process will be comprehensive, and it will include important input from our dedicated community. We have convened a search committee, and it's made up of trustees, faculty, staff, students, and alumni, and I'm glad to say that their work is underway. I'm confident that this search committee will capably fulfill its responsibility of representing our many Bentley stakeholders and identify multiple qualified presidential candidates for the Board of Trustees to consider. Chairing the search committee is Trustee Nick Stavropoulos from the class of 1979. Nick has been a member of our board since 2009. He's a seasoned executive with over 40 years of experience in the US and international natural gas industry, and we're grateful that he has taken on this vitally important leadership role over the months ahead. In addition to Nick's leadership, we'll be aided in our search by Isaacson Miller, which is a Boston-based national in scope executive search firm. I look forward to sharing updates from the Presidential Search Committee in the months ahead, and I'm confident that they will identify candidates with the right experiences, capabilities, and characteristics that we desire in our next president. To promote transparency, we have established a page on our website dedicated to the presidential search, where you can learn more about the search committee members and the latest search-related developments. Given Bentley's strong reputation and distinct positioning, we expect to receive interest from many qualified candidates from across the country. In a perfect world, we'll be introducing Bentley's 9th president to the community in the spring of 2021. Until then, I will continue to serve as the acting president, working with the university's leadership to lead Bentley through these challenging times. And after that, I'll go back to what I was doing beforehand, and that was being retired.
Andrew, you want to speak to the...
Sure, I'll talk about our return to campus and thank Paul for being here and helping lead us through this. It's been quite a ride for us this summer as we got through the planning and making sure that we open successfully. And thanks to the families that are here who helped prepare your students so well for the return to campus and being patient and cooperative with us as we work through the many logistical details and trying to organize everything and be ready. And you know, I think for those of you that came to campus to drop students off, you found a campus that was ready and prepared, safe, and set up for your arrival. And thank you to many of you who sent thank you notes. It was really great for the staff who had been working 7 days a week, long days, trying to prepare for that. And so we opened successfully. We got everybody on campus. We had a small ease-in period where we did not have classes on campus for the first week and kept off-campus students off campus, and then slowly eased people back onto campus, and that has gone well. And it is, classes are going on in person. I'm meeting with students who are enjoying the hybrid experience. They enjoy being in class, but they also enjoy the flexibility of being able to take classes wherever they want to. And you can see students as you walk around campus joining classes outside, joining classes in a variety of different places. And as students do, they figure out where to go and how to figure it out and find little nooks and crannies that we didn't even know existed around the campus. Students, you know, it is no surprise to me, after 27 years here, students have risen to the challenge and are working really hard to keep themselves safe and healthy and keep each other safe and healthy. And I think that's a key component. If there's any criticism we've gotten from students, it's sometimes we're not tough enough and not setting a hard enough example because they want to be here and they're really committed to being here and staying successful. It is a difficult situation, and I know I've chatted with many families It's hard. I tell people, for 27 years, I've been trying to get people together, encouraging students to meet each other, to meet people from different backgrounds, to get out of the rooms and engage. And for the first time in my career, I'm telling students to stay away from each other. So we're trying to work really hard to have virtual engagement opportunities. Student orgs are up and running. They're doing a lot of activities. I've spent this past week working with our pilot program, the Bentley Plus program, which is helping students navigate through the co-curricular experience. What activities should they be involved in? What are giving them some competencies that employers are looking for? And so meeting with students saying, well, what have you learned so far in your experience here? What skills do you have? What skills do you need? And what are some of the other things you may be able to do on campus to get there? All in all, it is going really, really well. If you have been looking at our dashboard, you know that we've had cases this week after going a significant number of weeks without any cases. We are surprised that we had so many weeks of no cases. We are not surprised to have cases. Every campus has cases. We've had all the cases have been quickly caught before students have been symptomatic. We've immediately done our own contact tracing, which has been followed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts contact tracing, kept students isolated. We see no connection between them, and we haven't seen any spread because of these. So we're feeling pretty confident that our procedures and policies are good. We do know, and you've seen the news, and we are, that close to something happening and an outbreak starting, but we're ready with our data to grab that quickly and make some adjustments if needed. We are in constant contact. Paul, I know, meets every Friday with presidents from around the Commonwealth. I meet at about the same time. I think we're both in similar meetings with my vice presidents and deans of students around Massachusetts and New England, talking about what they're seeing, what things are working, how they would adjust, what they've learned from situations. So there's a lot of collaboration. But again, I think to wrap up how things are going, they're going well, and many thanks to the students that are really leading the effort to make sure that we stay healthy and keep things going forward.
Thank you for those updates. Certainly it has seemed safe from our distance at home. All right, let's get into answering some questions from our audience. I will start by asking, how are students being allowed to use the library or study rooms for group projects?
Sure, I'll take that. Our best advice, it's the advice that Paul gives us as employees of the institution, and I think it's the smartest advice. When at all possible, do all of your meetings by Zoom. And that is what we're trying to tell students. For every case, whether you're a student, a faculty, a staff, or a citizen of Massachusetts, anybody who's had a close contact with someone who tests positive is quarantined for 14 days. And close contact is 15 minutes in the same room, having a conversation. It would be one hug, would be a close contact. Eating is a particularly, because you don't have a mask on and you're eating and breathing and talking at the same time. So every time the more interactions you have with someone at a close contact level, the more likely you may end up being quarantined for 14 days. So the library is open. There are opportunities for students to come in and study. There are some group meeting rooms. We have meeting rooms set up where there is at least 6 feet of distance between, so you can avoid that close contact criteria, being farther away than 6 feet. But those are limited. And obviously a campus our size, we can't have every space. If everybody used every space, we'd have some challenges, but there are certainly spaces to do that. But I would always encourage students, and I know we want students to interact with each other, and that personal connection is what I live for. But the safest thing we can do is have our students do their group projects and over Zoom, as the university is running itself via Zoom, even when we are all in the office. All of my colleagues on the cabinet and Paul share a floor, but when we have our meetings, we do it via Zoom, even though we're right next door to each other.
In that same vein, Andrew, when do you expect there to be more classes allowing students to attend in person? This person is a parent of 2 sons at Bentley, and collectively only one of their classes allows them to attend currently.
Sure, and maybe I'll ask Paul to help me out a little bit with that question as well. You know, it's ideally, I think when we, you know, we get to stage 4 in the Commonwealth, when things go back to normal, I think there will be some further classes online. We know students want that, but we also have to ensure the safety of our faculty and make sure that they feel comfortable and are cared for. It is a tough managing the classroom environment because all students have to be 6 feet apart. And that is a difficult task to manage, although at Bentley it's a little simpler because of our small class sizes. And that really is a huge advantage for us, even in the online space, because faculty are only dealing with 25 to 30 students in a Zoom room, where I know I have colleagues who are have students who are in 150, 200 person Zoom rooms, which is really tough. Paul, do you have anything to add about the classroom piece?
Well, I would say that that question I hear quite often, because I have one of my daughters is a junior. She has 4 classes that are remote, 1 hybrid, and she lives on campus. So I hear that question from her often, and a lot of the questions, that question has risen predominantly because they've seen how well they've been adhering to guidelines and how low our test count was. But part of the reason our test count is low is because of the precautions we're putting in place and the fact that the classroom buildings have less volume in them. And we know, you can just look at Merrimack College, Providence College, you can see how quickly things can turn. So the specific question, I don't see a change in the modality of teaching this semester. I mean, what we have planned right now will continue as it is through Thanksgiving. Next semester is a different situation, and one that we will have to just respond to what the current state of the pandemic is. It could be the same as we're experiencing now. It could be better. Hopefully it will be better. But for right now, we anticipate the modality of your son or daughter's classroom today will continue through the end of Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And I know a lot of you on this call are parents of current first-year students. So perhaps you could speak to how are first-year students and students of all years still being engaged in activities and encouraged to meet people and get acclimated to the Bentley community?
Sure, I'd be happy to take that, and I'll take it in maybe 2 parts, or one whole part, and then depending on whether or not they are one of the students who are living on campus versus the students who are attending classes and attending the community virtually. For students who are on campus, I encourage them, encourage families to encourage them to connect with their RA. So every residential student has a student residential advisor who's connected to them. Those RAs are working on programming and connections to ensure that there is that community feeling on those residence halls and to make those connections there. So that's a really important piece of that. For our students who are coming from around the world into classes and looking to connect, we encourage them through student organizations, and that would be the same for residential students as well. We had a virtual student activities fair, which we've done a student activities fair. It's one of the highlights of the year. Everybody's outside, everybody's going around, but we actually had better attendance at our virtual connection because everyone was able to just log on and get in. And so students should have been able to sign up, or were able to sign up, and should be connecting. All of our student groups, the majority of the 100 student organizations, are up and running and connecting. So I would encourage students to go to the Student Programs and Engagement website. There's Bentley Speaks, which is their direct sort of program website that shares all the things that are going on campus. There's also a new program called Campus Groups, new software that's helping students navigate through all of that. But for all students, one last piece, and for first-year parents, I'd encourage your sons and daughters to connect with their Nest advisor, and that program has just gotten up and running. It's for all students. We began it last year in March when we went remote. We connected every student to a member of the Division of Student Affairs so that there was a one point of contact for them to connect with. Students really liked it, and we had some student leaders who were, as Bentley students often do, gave us really good advice on how we could do better. And so we worked with them over the summer and we revamped the NEST program. So it's now a cohort-based program. So it's first year sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Before it was just based on where you lived. And the first year program is tied to their first year seminar. So they have a first year seminar advisor and they have a NEST advisor working together to help them get involved. And if they should be getting emails this week and next week from their NEST advisor, they should reach out and set up a meeting. We're happy to have a Zoom call. What are you interested in? And we'll make those connections for them. So it does take more effort. I have to, be clear on that. It's going to take more effort to be engaged and to make those connections, but they're here. But you do have to, put a little bit of work into it. And I always, when I hear parents say, well, they tell me no one will answer their question, no one will listen to them. That is not true at Bentley. It really is not true. It may happen here and there, but we are here to listen. So if they're telling you that, then tell them just to email me and I will listen, I will connect with them, or I'll have someone connect with them. But we are here to help them. It's a tough time, but we'll connect them and make sure that they're getting engaged with activities they want to be.
And
Andrew,
Andrew,
could you just talk a little bit about, I saw one of the questions related to a sense of aloneness, the fact that a lot of the activities, we talk about virtual activities, but can you talk about some of the activities that are ongoing that are face-to-face, even though they're social or social distanced?
Yeah. There are a lot of activities that are going on. Our intramural program is looking to, now that we've had a couple weeks of going, to get up and do some more activities. Student groups are doing more meetings outside and having those activities. A lot more of those kinds of things are happening. One of the challenges we have, we'd like to do some more bigger events, but even outdoors, we are limited by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the number of events that we can do. But there are more things going on a daily and weekly basis. We have tents on campus for students to come out and to interact and have some of those more organized events, and student groups will be doing more of those in the coming weeks.
Right, a couple of questions about dining. So one question is about if a student is in quarantine or isolated, how are meals provided to them? And what are the food options on campus now? Are they still only offering packaged food?
Sure, I'm happy to take that. Fortunately for us, technology has been really helpful here and been a bit of an accelerator. So as many families should know, you have all students have the Grubhub app. So for students in quarantine or isolation on North Campus, they have a menu, they order it on their phone, what they're looking for, what they're having, and we deliver it to them. So they get their food delivered right to their door. It's left outside, a text message to tell them to open up the door and pick it up. So we take care of them for that. All the dining locations are up and running and operational, and students can go on the Grubhub app and order what they want. So during orientation, as we opened up the university, the meals were pre-packaged. It was a way to keep things moving and organized, given all of the orientation activities and so many students looking to eat all at the same time. But the meal plan started up, and now students can go on their phone via the Grubhub app and order what they want. And you can, I've used the app, it's terrific. You can see which venue is open, which has what opportunities. You can also, if you're ordering from one location, it's like it'll take 15 minutes. You're like, I want my food right now. You can go to another location and they'll say it'll be ready in 5 minutes. So, a lot of options for students, and they can order what they need. For students who are on the meal plan, if they have a specific dietary request or allergy or anything like that, the staff are there. Camille is there during the day, taking IDs or making sure students are checked in. Say to Camille, I need some help. I need to I want to talk to a dining center manager, and they'll sit down and they will walk through what you need and how to get it, and including if it means, you know, they need to have something special made for them when they come in. So, you know, make sure they're communicating that to the staff, because the staff really wants to make sure it works well.
Thank you. Some questions about the potential outbreak. If we were, what would qualify as an outbreak, and how does the contact tracing work on campus? How are students notified if they live in the same dorm, perhaps, or is it just those that come in close contact?
Sure. I'll take a little bit of that, and then Paul, you may have some thoughts you want to add too. Let me talk first about contact tracing. So contact tracing is managed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So anytime there's a positive case, it gets reported, and the Commonwealth, through their contract tracing collaborative, goes forward and does that. However, the university, in our own, you know, interest of making sure we don't have an outbreak, we also do our own, and we're probably a few hours ahead of the state on that. And we do that for anyone in the definition of a close contact, which is typically, you know, what I was saying before, within 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. So when a positive case is identified, a member of our health services team speaks directly to the student who has tested positive, gets information about, you know, talks through what all the next steps are, what's going to happen, going to, if they're on campus, going to North Campus for isolation, or working with them if they're off campus and needing isolation there. Then talks to them about their close contacts and who that is and who that might be. Those names are identified, and then the health center staff or a member of the staff will contact those students, explain what's going on, work through that, notify the families, and go from there. For privacy reasons, we don't notify beyond the close contacts because of privacy laws and all those kinds of things, and it doesn't serve a public health good. It really actually only makes people more nervous. So everybody can be assured that if there's a positive case, within a few hours, anybody who was a close contact, according to the student, and I would encourage you, parents, if you have a student who tests positive, to make sure they're telling the whole truth and telling everybody they've had contact with, so we can stop something. You know, and Paul, we can talk about an outbreak. There are a variety of criteria that go into that, and Paul has really led the charge on getting us a really good matrix of different criteria that would impact. Certainly, positive cases on campus have an impact there, but so do what's going on in the city of Waltham, where those cases are, is there community spread, what are other things happening within, you know, the state healthcare system, can those manage that? So there's not one sort of, if this happens, then this happens, but a variety of things. But Paul, do you want to speak more specifically on some of those dashboards?
Yeah, I would say, I'd back up a moment and just say the key to limiting an outbreak is the contact tracing that Andrew referred to, and the fact that we are on top of that even before the state resources get involved is critically important, because it allows us to just really limit the spread. You know, besides some of the things that Andrew mentioned, there's also capacity issues. So we only have so many beds of for isolation and quarantine, for example. So that's a factor that we monitor. Interesting is, you know, federal guidance right now, if there is a massive outbreak, is not to send folks home. Their guidance from it was Vice President Pence and the Secretary of Education was telling universities, no, we want you to contain the folks on campus because we don't want them going home into their communities. Now that's federal guidance. It doesn't mean it's not law, it's not a edict, but as you know, our policy has been, if folks are local, would prefer they go home, and not so that we maintain our capacity. But as Andrew said, there's not one particular measure that we look at. It's not, you know, 10 cases in one day. It's not 30 beds utilized out of 80. It's a variety of factors internal to Bentley and external to the community.
Thank you. Here's an easy question. Can our students receive mail and packages if in quarantine?
It's probably an easy question, but I'm not clear on the whole answer to that. My hunch is yes, we can figure that out, and we will get it to them. I'm not sure if we've had that as an issue. I know, part of it is a little bit of the logistics and keeping the number of people, going there. But we will absolutely, if we have that situation, and you want to obviously send a package to someone. And it is a difficult situation, right? To be quarantined for 14 days, even though everything's taken care of for you and you get your food and you can go to class, it's still a lonely experience. So we'll work with you to figure that out if you want to send some mail or a package.
Here's a question on, is the school seeing any significant impact on the availability of internships with regard to our students seeking those opportunities?
I don't have numbers in my hand right now with regard to that, but I know that this past summer, a lot of our larger employers that we have relationships maintain their internships, although the internships were virtual. I know that I worked at Liberty Mutual for 30 years, and we have an internship program of over 400 students across the country, and we maintain that during this past summer because we know that the pandemic won't last forever, and we know that we need these students and we want to attract these students to work for us when they graduate. So we continue that investment. It's not as ideal for the student or for the employer, but it's important to maintain that continuity. And I don't anticipate that changing. It's about now that a lot of the employers are starting to set their plans in place for internships, particularly for next summer. So we'll probably be learning a lot more about the various companies that come to Bentley in the next month or so.
Here's a question for us from a parent whose student lives off campus and has a remote class and a hybrid class back to back. Are there places on campus where students can take their remote class even if they are off-campus commuter students?
Sure. I mean, as long as they're a part of the screening program and they have their wristband, they can use any available facility. We don't have designated or reservable spaces, but there are plenty of spaces around. And that's what I was sharing before. There's a lot of students you see with headphones sitting in the student center at tables. We've designated a lot of areas throughout the campus as places where students can go. I believe even classrooms that are not being utilized are available to students. Anywhere around the campus. There's plenty of spaces, I think, to find those, and students can email me or we'll find, help them find a space if they need it. But that is a concern, and we know students, including for residential students, if two students are sharing a bedroom and have class at the same time, we need to help them navigate places to go, just like we're all doing when two people are working at home at the same time.
In reference, I'm sorry, I was going to ask a question now about the health center. Someone wants to know, is it open for other health needs other than COVID-related symptoms?
Sure, it is. We are seeing residential students right now via telehealth. We're happy to work with students and connect them off campus with local providers, trying to limit exposure and those kinds of things. The majority of what's happening via the health center is via telehealth. But they will bring a student in if needed. They're not doing as many services as they were doing before. Before they would do a full range of services, including health checks and annual exams and those kinds of things. But given the amount of work that is going on to run the screening center and to take care of students, they're doing mostly initial triage work, working with the student via telehealth, and then connecting them with some resources. But they are definitely available, and reach out, give them a call. If they can't see you, they will help you find a place to get further assistance.
Andrew, why don't you comment on flu shots and how we plan to administer those this year.
Sure. As you should know, or maybe you don't know if you're from out of state, all college students, all students in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are required to have a flu shot. And so we are requiring students to have a flu shot by the end of this month or October. And they are getting emails regularly about signing up if they are on campus or an off-campus student coming onto campus and they have a screening wristband that they are going to need to complete their flu shots. And all of those instructions are emailed to them. All they have to do is sign up for the time, and through our provider, Osco Drug, they will get their flu shot.
Great information. We do have a session this afternoon at 1 o'clock with our new athletic director, Vaughn Williams, but there are some questions about expanded hours for the gym and whether or not intramural sports might start this semester.
Sure. We are hoping to do some intramural activity, but we won't be able to do, for instance, intramural basketball. There's just not a way to do that. Within the guidelines and the restrictions. We do have our varsity teams doing some practices, and that has begun, but that is under some really strict guidelines and with NCAA and Northeast 10 guidance for that. But we do recognize that there are activities and we want to get students out and doing some of those kinds of things. So more to follow on that, and we'll be communicating to students. Second, we've been doing the pilot to see how the fitness center and those activities work because it has to be a limited time frame and adhering to some of the best practice guidelines of shutting it down and cleaning it. And we wanted to see how that reservation system worked, and that seems to be working well, and we're going to explore if we can add more hours to that. And I would encourage, if you're available this afternoon, to join our new athletics director. He is a dynamic individual who is really excited to be at Bentley and really wants to engage with all members of the community, alumni, parents, students. And so I encourage you to attend that session and ask him some questions.
Thank you. We have quite a few questions here. Oh, here's a nice one. US News just increased Bentley's ranking to #1 North Regional. Congratulations to all. What factors do you think led to this improvement in the rankings?
Well, I mean, I think one other item that happened was we were ranked #1 in the Career Center. The Pulsifer Career Center was ranked #1, which I think influences the overall Northeast ranking for #1. We've always, in both categories, we've always been in that top 1, 2, 3 and jumping around. So we're glad to be back in the top spot, but a lot of it is around the student survey that is placed or sent out, and the job placement is a big driver of that ranking.
You mentioned earlier, Andrew, the uptick in recent COVID cases. And so someone's wondering if there's any reason that we just saw this uptick this week. I believe you mentioned they weren't connected, but wondering if there are any restrictions placed on students leaving campus, i.e. going into Boston or having friends visit campus.
We don't see any, other than the law of averages of, at some point, we always expected that we would, I think we always anticipated on a weekly basis, we would have some positive cases just based on the data that is available. And this week we had more than we've had before, but there's we don't see any connection to them. We don't see any relationship, as you've seen and read in other at other institutions, an off-campus party or some other activity that sort of led to a couple. These all seem to be, unrelated to each other, different classes, graduate, undergraduate, on-campus, off-campus. So we don't really see any connection there, and we don't think at this point in time we need to make any modifications to the policies. But of course, we're going to keep monitoring this and monitoring those close contacts who are in quarantine to see if there's any community spread, and then we'll make adjustments as we go from there. But for now, we think things are going really well on campus.
Going back to the flu shot for a moment, what if a family has an exception, i.e. a medical or religious exception, and does not want their child to receive a flu shot? And a question about, is it free for students or are they having to pay for the flu shot?
Sure, I'll take the second part of that, and that is, it is when they go, it is through a third-party vendor, OSCO, and OSCO will ask for their health insurance, and to my knowledge, we haven't had anybody yet with OSCO have a problem with having their health insurance cover the cost of the flu shot. We are working through the medical exemption policy and how we will manage that. Yes, the Commonwealth does allow for that, but we have to develop our own policies on campus. Obviously, you know, one of the public health goal for us with the flu shot is to help us manage the health of the campus. And if we had a flu outbreak, it would be considered to be a COVID case. So if a student gets which means quarantine and isolation. And so a flu outbreak on campus could actually shut down the campus because it would take over our quarantine and isolation space. So we're trying to prevent that and work through that. So we will have some more information on that in the next week or so.
Andrew, let me ask you a question. I'm asking now as a parent. My daughter tells me that there are a lot of people, it appears, to be in quarantine, yet they're not COVID related. What's happening there, and why are those beds being occupied?
Sure. So it's a great question, and one to be honest, we're a little surprised at. So if I have a cold, so a student has a cold, contacts the health center and says, you know, I have a fever and I've got a sore throat and like this cough, we are going to initially assume that this is a potential COVID case. And to protect the rest of the community, we're going to isolate you while we test you for COVID, which it would be similar if you went to your own doctor. Your doctor would say, I'm testing you for COVID. Until you get your result, I encourage you to go home and not interact with anyone so you don't spread it. So those students are going up there. Within 24 hours, you know, we're getting the negative result back, and then they go back into the community. And basically that's for, you know, if it turned out to be a positive, we wouldn't have wanted that student, you know, for 24 hours to spread. If the student can stay in their own room, if they're not sharing a bathroom, or they can use their own bathroom, we'll keep them in their room. The reason we're a little bit surprised by that is we had thought that, you know, with so much, you know, with, you know, face coverings and all the, you know, washing hands, all these things, we wouldn't see as much cold or health system, you know, as we happen to be seeing. But we are seeing more than we anticipated. But we're just being abundantly cautious and following the state and Department of Public Health guidelines for how to make sure we don't have a spread on campus.
Thank you.
As usual, Paul, you always have great questions coming from your daughter. So.
A question about the week of Thanksgiving. Are students allowed to make a second COVID testing appointment during the week if they're leaving early to go home for Thanksgiving?
At this point, I would say the answer is no, because we have a limited number of tests per week. You know, we contract with the Broad for these are the number of tests that we will have. We also have a limited, you know, we have to staff that center, and so we need to get those students tested that week. But we can certainly help a student identify a location to get a test if they want to be tested before they go home, or they can also adjust their schedule so they can get their test. You know, they can, you know, if they were tested on Monday and they wanted to be tested on Thursday, they can make those adjustments.
That's good to know. A question regarding, a couple of questions regarding January. So will we have new students and transfers starting and entering the dorms in 2021? Someone specifically asked about if their student doesn't have a roommate now, is there a possibility they would have a roommate in January? And I guess also just big picture, thinking about when will we have a better idea of the next trimester's plan?
I'll talk about the housing piece, and I'll let Paul talk a little bit about our planning and our thinking on January. You know, we don't exactly know what the residence halls will look like in January. My hunch is it will look similar to where we are now. We don't anticipate too many significant changes. We do anticipate we will have new students joining us in January, and we will work with them on where they want to live and what options we have for them. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about our thinking on planning and when we hope to make some announcements?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, the plan is pretty much status quo of what you're experiencing today. You know, absent Massachusetts moving from phase 3 to phase 4, we think it's going to be prudent to maintain a campus that has reduced density of people and thus would never be at full capacity like we have been in years past. With regard to specifics on the academic calendar, we're hoping to provide a little bit more guidance around mid to late October as to what the timing of events will be. You know, things such as spring break. You know, will it be wise to have spring break? A lot of schools have already determined that, like Thanksgiving, we don't want to send kids away to hotspots and have them return after break. And may we potentially either postpone spring break or cancel spring break and have a shorter semester, or have a couple of longer weekends, things like that that we're studying and involving input from the student body. So mid to late October, we should have a little firmer guidance, but like any guidance we planned, you know, it's been difficult because the environment changes so rapidly. And so if we commit to something, even something like graduation, you know, it's based on certain conditions, and unfortunately, there's so much uncertainty right now. It's hard, impossible to be definitive.
Switching gears a little bit, with the isolation and virtual learning, what extra steps are being taken to ensure academic engagement and academic outcomes?
I'll just give a quick report, and then maybe, Paul, you can give some of the details about how we got there. But the feedback I've gotten from primarily returning students has been the academic experience has been really good, much improved from when we had to go quickly to the remote learning. But I think that small class size really helps students engage and connect with their faculty, and I know students are reporting that. But Paul, we did a lot of work in the academic world over the summer. Maybe share a little bit about some of that.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew mentioned that it's been better, and that's the feedback I received too from my data point of 1. And but it's better than last spring when we were forced to shut down and go remote on the turn of a dime. But we also recognize it's not the same as a live classroom. Why it's better this fall than it was last spring is really twofold. One, we have now 70 classrooms that are outfitted with the proper technology to do remote. So even if a faculty member is not having students in a classroom, they may actually leverage the technology to deliver the classroom, which they weren't able to do in the past. The other part is the faculty invested a lot of time this past summer getting more adept at teaching in a remote environment, both the delivery, but also the content and modifying the content of their classes that would make them more conducive. We sent nearly 30 professors to the Minerva Institute, which is a institute / online university that is really good at online delivery. Those faculty members came back, took what they learned, shared them with other members of faculty. And so all of our faculty are going through a sort of a certification program to improve their skills. So I think those two items alone have helped improve the delivery. But as I said, it's certainly not the same as being in a live room like all of you probably experience if you're working from home. It's not quite the same as being in the office.
Thank you. We're going to take one final question, and I do know Andrew makes himself available, so if you have very specific questions about your student, you can feel free to reach out to him directly. But the last question is, will there be any changes to the trimester schedule?
Well, the trimester schedule right now is, we're focused on the trimester in the summer of 2021, which is a great opportunity for our students to take additional courses or just spread their 10 required courses over the semesters they choose. So we plan to have a wide array of offerings for our students as we promised. So this will be a learning opportunity for us too. One, to determine what type of demand is there. Do students really want to go in the summertime? And those who do go, what types of classes are they most interested in taking? So we're going to certainly let the summer really shape our offerings in subsequent summers.
Thank you. Any final comments from either of you before we close out for this morning?
I'd just like to say, on behalf of Andrew and the cabinet, we understand this is a very difficult environment. It's a difficult environment for your students. And I just want you to know that we appreciate everything they've been doing to make this work. We appreciate their ability to navigate through the various challenges and obstacles, and we're there to support them and to support you. So, if in fact you have any other concerns or questions, we didn't address all of the questions here today, please reach out to us, and we'll certainly get those questions answered. But thank you for your support during this, because we really aren't able to be successful without all of you assisting us. So thank you.
And I'll share my thanks and the support from families and your students. Your students have been great. We really appreciate all that they're doing and all that you're doing to help us.